All right, everyone, it's time for a little bit more 2020 election analysis here, and you'll pardon any background noise. There's rather chaos going on at the moment. I've got a lot to do today, actually. Fun stuff mostly, so it's no problem. Maybe I'll go out and get lunch or some bullshit. We got to talk about the 2020 election, specifically how Trump has now come out. His campaign, which is already formed, is like, well, we're going to target some of these states that Clinton won. Now, the general, I think, consensus among most people, especially until the Mueller report ended, was that it would be a better idea for him to simply target the states that he won that were kind of close, like a Michigan or a Florida. It's very, very important that he spends a lot of time there, especially within the Rust Belt states. Pennsylvania, absolutely essential to, sort of that 2020 battleground politics style that you're going to see emerge. And it really depends on who he's facing off against, because the Democrats have different amounts of strength and support around the country, but he's decided to go one further, and I agree with the decision. I think some people who are black-pilled are like, well, Trump will be lucky to even be reelected because my Texas demographics, or he'll lose some support in the Rust Belt. It'll go blue again for the next 10 million generations because everyone knows demographic shift is one-sided, and stupid shit like that. But actually, things favor him, I think, a lot more than people would like to believe in some cases. It was a squeaker in Virginia, for example, in the last election. He is capable of winning there, especially with the fallout from some of the politics on the state level there, where the Democrats got so much fucking egg on their face it looked like they became an omelet. So the Democrats are very, very weak in Virginia. Now, the polls aren't going to tell that full story. When it comes down to it, he's got to press that issue, and I think he will. When he's campaigning, he's going to go down there and he's going to talk about Northam and all of these other goofballs in the Democratic Party, and he's going to hammer away at that. He's going to try to transform a state-level situation into a national-level politics, making the Democrats guilty by default of the sins of some of their in-party members down there, which makes sense since Northam, one of the top Democrats, really, when you think about it. And now he's going to have to deal with the Fed. The number 1, 2, and 3 in command in the state of Virginia's democratic system are all scandal ridden with regards to blackface and what was it, sexual assault allegations and weird shit like that. So he's got that in his favor. Minnesota's another one. You've got a lot of, I think, social alienation even now beginning in some of the outlying urban districts, really because of the issue of immigration, number one, and number two, Islamic moralism specifically. It is becoming more of an issue in the United States. Now, it shouldn't be. It should be a non-issue. By all rights, we shouldn't have to deal with this bullshit, but it's an issue anyway, and Trump is on the winning end, I believe, historically. I think that populistic sort of quasi-nativistic rhetoric aimed at specifically religious moralism actually, ironically enough, fits in more with maybe a true liberalism, and so I think it wins over time. I think that issue blows up in the Democrats' faces, because what they're doing is they're trying to appease people who have, let's say, fanatic religious views in some cases, to the detriment of their ability. How the hell are they going to conduct outreach with, like, LGBT youth or something like that? By the way, we support your right to get a gay marriage, but we also support these other people who think that you should be thrown off a building. Yeah, that's going to go over well as a campaign slogan. By the way, I'm not, like, oversimplifying. You realize that that's only a small proportion of people who are, even religious at all. Like, among Christians, most Christians aren't particularly homophobic and don't give a fuck about the issue anymore. But it is still an issue, and it's still one that Trump can take and hyperbolize on a national stage. Say, look, it's a huge problem. Migrants and alienation and crime and stuff. Hyperbole is politics. Politics, in part, is the art of taking small problems, amplifying them, and using them to get people to give you 51% of the vote. It's real slimy. That's why Trump is doing well in politics. He's a corporate cutthroat. He's a boardroom hawk. He's not say anyone who thinks that Trump's a nice. Hey, Donald, will you babysit my kids or something? You come back and your kids have formed a money laundering scheme or something, a pyramid scam or something. It'd be like what's that company, Amway or whatever it is. It'd be a little bit similar. It'd be very funny. But that's the kind of president ultimately we need right now. Yeah, we need a cutthroat president and go after the Chinese government on its currency manipulation and bad trade deals. Someone who can keep Russia in check. Yeah, we absolutely need exactly the kind of president we have in Trump. Yeah, I'll probably vote for him. And also, some of that tax relief didn't kick in. It won't kick in until the next fiscal season, like the mandate being repealed and stuff. I know some people have said that they didn't file it with, they didn't have to pay it, and some people did. I don't even know. I fucking don't know. I think you're supposed to, but it's not enforced or something, and so some tax experts are just putting it on there. It's like, it's 2.5%. I'm willing to pay that to not deal with the IRS auditing me or some shit. I mean, you know, when you get to the point where you can, you know, go to federal prison for 10 years because you skimped a couple of dollars, I'd rather pay more than I owe. Trust me. It's like blood money, I guess, or something. No. I think it's great that Trump is planning to target these states. Minnesota's a good one, and Virginia would be the other big one. He does need to buff up states that were close. Florida's is essential. Pennsylvania is essential. North Carolina, arguably, would be a battleground in the election, although I think it'll probably go a little bit more red this time. I think I wouldn't bother with New Hampshire, specifically because if Bernie Sanders is the nominee, he wins New Hampshire. It's hands down, he'll get 65% of the vote, just because it's the twin state thing, and Bernie spends a lot of time in New Hampshire, and Vermont and New Hampshire are similar. There are less taxed, more wise libertarian neighbors, and we're the granola crunching, fish listening redneck hippies, and so we just get along. Like, there's no animus at all. Like, we're not going to build border fortifications on the Connecticut River anytime soon. If we do, it'll be to keep people from Maine from fucking coming across too. No offense, but yeah. I will put ketchup in my baked beans. I do not care if you have a problem with this. I'm just joking. I don't actually do that. I'm not that big a barbarian when it comes to ketchup. It's a good idea for him to target those states. The other thing I would say, forsake the Southwest. Don't bother. Like, Arizona's not going to flip blue. You don't need to worry. Go there a couple times and visit Phoenix or whatever. New Mexico's not going to go red. Demographic shift is causing that to happen, unless Warren happens to be the nominee. If Elizabeth Warren becomes the nominee, Trump should go in full Southwest and ignore the Rust Belt almost. Say, well, yeah, I can grab up California maybe because of some of these voting blocks. He might get into his head that that's actually a good idea. It depends on the candidate. Like, again, Sanders wins New Hampshire. There's no reason for Trump to even bother showing up there if Sanders is the nominee. Beto O'Rourke could potentially be a challenger in Texas. I don't see it in the cards. I don't think it's likely. In fact, it might alienate Texans from the Democrats because he says weird shit like, we want to get rid of the border that's already here, and I don't think that that's a wise political strategy. But it could be a problem. Elizabeth Warren would be very weak in some of these southwestern quarter states. She definitely would suffer in New Mexico or Arizona. Maybe a Utah or so, because of the Native American populations. Because Trump could turn that into a major platform, part of his campaign. Look, the Democrats hate you and they're fucking racist and say weird shit. You know, Elizabeth Warren pretends to be Cherokee and, you know, talks about her mayonnaise omelets or whatever fucking recipe it was in the Pow Wow Chow book there. And it's like, yes, this landlocked Native American tribe made such great crab cakes. Oh my god, it was the funniest thing ever. Now, I've got to get a copy of that book. I've got to make the recipe. Like, I actually hate crab, just saying. I'm not big into omelets either, so I don't know. I guess I'd have to try it. I'll cook the recipe on video, and then I'll try it and then spew it out because it's going to be as full of shit as she is. And then there are other candidates as well. Like, that's, other than Kamala Harris, that sort of rounds out the people that are viable now, doesn't it? Beto O'Rourke, Elizabeth Warren, like, Booker's not viable anymore. I think he's fallen from grace. Nobody even fucking knows he's still in. And then you've got Biden, who might not even run. He still hasn't made a permanent decision. It's like the time to get in would have been a couple months ago. To get in early, I mean, he's the front runner, according to all polling, without being in the race. I think part of it is he wants to remain above the fray. He knows as soon as he announces, everyone else attacks him. Well, that doesn't really matter. Most of them are leftists. He can outmaneuver them just by saying, look, these people are fanatics. This isn't what our party's supposed to be. Beto O'Rourke and Hickenlooper would be the ones primarily attacking him at that point with any viability, and nobody knows who Hickenlooper is. Or Buttigieg, who's a flash in the pan. Look, we saw this, by the way, when you see some of these candidates rise up, like Beto or Buttigieg is right now. He's like at 5 or something. This usually precedes a collapse of their campaign. They say something, they do something, it's like, oh, it's so great, people jump on, but it's never hard support. It's just people sort of riding that wave for the moment while they're exciting. And then they peter out and they go back to a viable candidate. This happened like 6 times during the last election among the Republicans. Trump consistently was at the top. Everyone else, they got to the top, sometimes even surpassed him, like Carson did in a couple of polling periods, and then they crash. And basically that's it. Basically, the only other person who had sustained support was Cruz. Even Rubio crashed and burned. You'll remember that he was the 3rd-tier candidate. You can already see this happening with people like Buttigieg, Klobuchar, arguably, like you could see it with Julian Castro or something. They could suddenly spike at 10 points and then go back down. Warren is sliding. Booker has slid backwards. Sanders is sliding right now. Right now, the people on the upswing are Buttigieg, who won't win. Joe Biden, who's stable at almost 30%, which is why he's fucking stupid if he doesn't get in even after the scandal he's going through, because he'd still probably win anyway. Kamala Harris is more or less sustained, and then Warren has dropped off a cliff. Probably because people are starting to realize, hey, it's not a good idea to nominate some of these people. Some of these people are not capable of beating Trump no matter what they do. Elizabeth Warren will not become the president of the United States. It is not feasible for her to put together the kind of coalition she would need. She's already, that bridge burned long ago with her lying about her race, number one, which would piss off every business Democrat, and her embracing of far-left fiscal policies. There is no coalition she can make to expand the Democratic coalition. If anything, she would alienate millions of voters. It'd be a terrible idea. I'm still saying the people ultimately that are the most viable are not being taken seriously. That includes someone like maybe a Buttigieg. That includes him. The closest thing they have to a first or second tier candidate right now that could be considered viable is, ironically, Joe Biden, the technical front runner without even getting in, who doesn't want to get in because he's like, well, I don't know, my son died or some excuse. Or I think it's ultimately he doesn't want scandals to come to the fore. I think he's worried about that. He's going to take time to tie up loose ends before he gets in and just hope that it doesn't blow up in his face, number one. And number two, I think he is honestly considering whether at his age he wants to go through with it. I do honestly believe that. Part of me believes maybe he's just doing all this for visibility. He's going to tease and drag it out and never announce or something like that. He never filed the paperwork. I think it's likely that he gets in. All signs point to yes, but it's like, fucking shit or get off the pot at some point. That's about all. Peace out.